So let's not forget that there are real data out there. R, also called base minus R, includes a number of built-in datasets. That means you don't have to install any packages to access them. Now, do you remember how to find these preloaded datasets? One of them, the one we're looking for right now, is called Nile, like the river Nile, N-I-L-E. And there are different ways to find it. If you just want to look at all the datasets that are available to you right away without having to install the package behind it, you could type data, and you see there's a few packages we have loaded. We have loaded ggplot, and to go to the top you see datasets, which is the name for standard preloaded datasets. And if you go further down, you find the river Nile here. Okay, so now another way, of course, of finding out more about Nile is to type help, or the short version, $Nile. If we do that, we get some information about the Nile. We find out it's the flow of the river Nile, measured as annual flow in billions of cubic meters, and measured between the years 1871 and 1970, so 100 values. And as often in data sets, it's quite useful if you want to know more about it. There is a link to a paper that introduces this data set, references, and of course there are examples in this case. So one of them we're actually going to do in a moment. This time we will not look at the plot function. We will, in the next section, look at the histogram, just to do something else. Plot, if you remember, creates a scatter plot. So let's get back to R, and let's find out what type of data this is. So we type class, like we used to do for vectors, and we find out it's TS. It stands for time series. So that's a sequence of numbers. If this puzzles you, remember we looked at another data set called empty cars, which contains values, several variables and observations about number of cars. And if you type class empty cars, you see that's a data frame. That's a data structure we're going to look at in another section. How can we print this onto the screen? How can we look into Nile? And again, there's different possibilities. One is to just look at the structure, which in this case is simple. It's a time series, we are told here again. It's a simple vector of 100 numbers, and then you get an extract of the data set itself, just to see that these are actually integers. You can also type head, which gives you the first 6 values. And in this case, because it's a relatively small data set, 100 values will not break the screen or your computer. You can also just type the name of the data set itself. And if you do that, the entire data set is printed on the screen. And at the moment, because we don't know how to look at subvectors, like this one, or at individual elements yet, so we could apply the class function to a particular element, we cannot be absolutely sure, that these are integers. Of course, we can see it, so we can be sure enough. But the output seems to at least suggest that we have integers here. You can also see really well here how row labels work. So the row labeled number 1 contains 15 values, and the next row, labeled 16, begins with the 16th entry, and then the 17th entry, and so on. The third row begins with the 31st entry, and so on.